The birth of a baby is a miracle. But what if that tiny heart stops? While infant death seems like a medical issue today, for thousands of years this tragedy was not just a death, but a sign of an ancient curse that haunted the family. So how did ancient civilizations cope with this terrible fate? What spells were cast for the souls of dead babies? And why were locked boxes, talismans, and even traces of blood left in some baby graves? Today we are wandering through the dark corridors of history together. For the Egyptians, death was a sacred journey, but when a baby died, its soul was lost and in danger. So, grieving families would throw small clay figures into the Nile River to offer their dead baby's soul to the gods. The figures would be filled with the baby's actual hair, pieces of teeth and fingernails. But this ritual sometimes had terrible consequences. If the figure sank to the bottom of the water, it meant that the gods had not accepted the baby's soul. This was a sign of disaster not only for the family, but for the entire village. Because this curse could affect not just one baby, but the entire household. It was said that when the soul of a cursed baby was not accepted, the waters of the Nile suddenly turned dark, and the crocodiles in it became unusually aggressive. In some villages, mysterious events would occur after this bad omen. Animals would die for no reason, fields would dry up, and family members would catch strange illnesses. This is where the black magic priests would come into play. Sacrifices would be made to put the baby's soul to rest. The most frightening thing was that sometimes a human would become part of this ritual. In ancient Rome, there was something that everyone was afraid of: lemures, restless spirits. Especially the spirits of babies were considered the most dangerous, because if babies died without being baptized or performing the proper rituals, their souls were cursed. They were not accepted into the afterlife and would return at midnight to take revenge on the living. This is why some Roman families did not bury their babies who died shortly after birth in an ordinary grave. Instead, they buried them in the foundations of their houses. These tiny skeletons, placed in the walls or between the stones of the house, acted as a seal to prevent the immortal spirits from returning. However, while some thought this was a protection ritual, others whispered a much darker truth. Some wealthy Romans sacrificed newborn babies to make their newly built houses strong and durable. As archaeologists dug beneath Roman cities, they found traces of this gruesome tradition. In particular, baby bones were found in the foundations of baths, temples, and large villas. So was this really a ritual to stop a curse, or was it part of a much more sinister belief? Were the mysterious cries echoing through the streets of Rome at night really the cries of lost souls, or were they simply a reflection of the people's fears? A shadow that sneaks into the rooms of women who have just given birth in the darkest hours of the night. With her pale skin, crooked smile, and a bloody cloth in her hand, Al-Kharissa was the nightmare of women and babies who had just given birth. This dark being, described in Turkish mythology, not only stole souls, but also took their breath away. The Al-Kharissa, who was thought to be the cause of newborn babies dying of suffocation, would especially haunt women who had just given birth. People would place an iron dagger, scissors, or a needle at the head of their bed to protect themselves from this evil entity, because the Al-Kharissa's greatest weakness was sharp metals. But what if precautions were not taken? Then, in the middle of the night, a muffled wheezing would be heard from the room. In the morning, the mother's face would be purple and the baby would be dead. Or worse, the baby would disappear without a trace. Sometimes in remote villages, in abandoned huts, babies would be found in a cradle that never cried and looked dull-eyed. Whether that baby was still human or not was a big unknown. According to ancient Japanese traditions, the souls of babies who were unborn or died at an early age could not pass peacefully to the afterlife. They were known as Mizuko, or water babies, and wandered the earth as stranded, lost souls. But most frighteningly, these spirits were sometimes believed to be angry and vengeful. You enter a silent temple. Fog is all around. A light breeze blows against the old stone statues. There, lined up by the roadside, are hundreds of Jizo stone dolls, small grey stone figures carved from stone. But each one has a dull face. Their eyes seem to have been gouged out. They are dressed in red aprons and have knitted hats on their heads. As the wind shakes them, a thin whisper is heard. "Oka-san," mother. These stone dolls were placed in temples to bring peace to the lost baby spirits. But there was a fact that not everyone knew. Sometimes these spirits could not find peace. According to legend, if a baby spirit remained in the world for too long, it would turn into a ghost child, like seeing someone's head suddenly turn from among the silent stone statues, as if they were watching you. And the scariest thing? Some mothers say that they hear babies crying when they pass by those temples at night, but there is no one in the temple, just silent stone babies. In the cold and dark nights of the Middle Ages in Europe, the greatest fear of the people was not only plague or famine. There were sinister beings that roamed the streets at night, stealing babies. They were called witches. There was a rumor whispered among the people. If a newborn baby suddenly became ill, stopped crying, and his eyes became dull, his soul had already been stolen. Witches would seal the pure souls of babies with black magic rituals in the moonlight to gain eternal power. But the most terrifying part was this. Sometimes these spirits did not return. When the graves of dead or lost babies were opened in the middle of the night, the coffins were found empty. The cases recorded in church records were terrifying. It was recorded that in a town, all the babies born within a few years either died mysteriously or disappeared from their cribs in the middle of the night. People would make magic circles with ashes to protect their babies and place scrolls with sacred prayers under their cribs. But sometimes, no matter what they did, a baby would disappear in the morning, leaving only a cold, tiny handprint on the bed. A more frightening rumor was the legend of changed babies. Witches would leave soulless, strangely behaving creatures in place of the stolen babies. These babies neither laughed nor cried. They would only look into your heart with their eyes, and whispers would be heard at night. And the most frightening story. In 1587, when a witch was tried in Germany, 13 small cradles were found in her house. However, they were not babies inside, but empty puppets covered in dried skin. They were believed to be babies whose souls had been stolen. And what about today? Are the strange whispers heard near the crib at night really the wind? Or are they the echoes of a curse from the Middle Ages? In the past, infant death was not just a mourning, but the beginning of a supernatural war. Perhaps these rituals were a mother's attempt to ease the pain of losing her child. Or perhaps invisible hands were actually stealing the souls of babies and taking them to another world. Even today, aren't traditions, such as tying a red ribbon in a newborn's room and drinking maternity sherbet, the legacy of these ancient fears? So, do you believe these rituals are superstition or lost wisdom? Share in the comments. Who knows? Maybe the souls are still with us.